Hello everyone and welcome to another video for Wrestling with the Plot. My name is Cameron and I am the proprietor of this establishment, and today I'm going to be doing my first wrestling topic pose. So I'm kind of excited about that. Now I know that I'm assuming that most of the people watching this are either not wrestling fans anymore or you never were to begin with. So I can't really just go diving into the deeper things that go on every week because it wouldn't make sense. So I'm just going to start with something simple. I'm going to talk about the alignment system of the wrestling world, which is known as faces and heels. Now, faces are the people that we cheer for, they're the good guys, and heels are the people that we boo and want to see lose. So it doesn't matter what genre you're writing, the faces are the people that you want your readers to support. Should they, like, if this whole thing was real, who would you want them to support and get behind, and who do you want them to see be defeated? In wrestling, faces, they always play by the rules, they do things that the crowd would like, and they generally have, a pleasant personality. And heels, they lie, cheat, and steal whenever it's in their best interest to do so. Now, faces and heels were a major part of wrestling in the 80s and earlier, and it was very strictly enforced. Like, you would not see if someone was a face and another person was a heel, even though they were working together in the same company, you would never see those two people in public together because that was just the rules. And in the mid 90s to now, there gave rise to something in wrestling they call the tweener. Now, tweeners are basically the gray area in between good and evil, and they're basically anti-heroes. And so the reason that that rose in popularity was because, in the 90s, I mean, everything was weird in the 90s, but basically those flawless, perfect heroes like Superman who fought for truth, justice, and the American way, that got kind of stale. And so heroes kind of like Deadpool, who they did good things, but not because it was the good thing to do. They just had more flavor to them. And so a tweener is someone that we may cheer or we may boo depending on what they're doing because they're always looking out for their own interests. And so they might be in a position where we want them to succeed, but they might turn on us. Now, I know that sounds kind of like I guess, a treacherous weasel of a snake. However, those types of characters are heels. So a tweener is not someone who switches back and forth all willy-nilly. A tweener is someone that you they do change back and forth a lot, but you don't see it coming. So it's not obvious that they're going to do it, because if you see it coming, then you just know to boo because you're like, well, I can't buy into them and I can't trust them. So you have to somewhat believe when they're being a good guy that they are a good guy at that moment in time. Now, face and heel alignment is useful to consider in writing because the way that I use it, I consider it to be an extra dimension. So, and also one thing to note, this is not the same as protagonist and antagonist, because a protagonist is your leading character and whatever goal they're pursuing, and the antagonist is a main opposing force to that goal of the protagonist. So if you have a story about a child and he's prophesized to save the world from this big evil ruler, then the child would be the protagonist and the evil emperor would be the antagonist. But if you write that same exact story from the emperor's point of view, and then he's trying to figure out who this kid is that keeps messing up his plans, well, in that case, the emperor is the protagonist and the kid would be the antagonist. I think I said that right. I feel like I'm going to say it again just in case. The Emperor would be the protagonist if the story was told from his point of view, and then the child would be opposing him, trying to just to rule his galaxy or country or whatever it is that he's ruling over. And this is also not the lawful, chaotic, good and evil scale either. You might have seen that somewhere as it refers to making characters for Dungeons and Dragons and for making characters in fiction in general. That scale determines how your characters behave, whereas Faces and Heal determines how the audience reacts and receives your character when they show up. So you can have most of the time your good characters are going to be a face, and most of the time your evil characters are going to be Heal. But there can be exceptions to this. Now, one thing about it, and the reason that I use this in addition to the lawful good and chaotic evil scale, is because every confrontation needs a face and a heel. Every confrontation needs someone for the audience to cheer for and someone for the audience to root against. Now, it doesn't matter if they are fighting or shooting, or if it's a romance novel where it's two people trying to win the heart of one person, or if it's a mystery where one detective is trying to solve the case and then maybe another detective from another branch is trying to solve it first, or maybe the criminal is just trying to hide the evidence. As long as there's someone for the reader to root for and someone for the reader to root against, now you're cooking with gas. And you can do face against face, but that only really works in situations where the characters are already kind of popular and established, and then they're in this situation where they don't really know who to cheer for, but they're just so excited about it that they can't look away from it. Heel versus heel is hardly ever done because, I mean, if there are two people doing something and nobody wants to see either of them succeed, then why would you read it, you know? And so that's why I use this as an extra dimension, because when done right, it can add to everything that you have going on. So I'm going to talk about a few examples of when face and heel doesn't exactly match the moral alignment, so that way you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. So you know that kid in school, and let's say school got out at 3, I got out at 3. So say at 2:50, and this kid just raises his hand, and the teacher's like, "Yes, Melvin, what is it?" And Melvin goes, "You forgot to collect the homework." Everyone in the class is just like, "Oh my, what did he just say?" Like, everyone's gonna hate Melvin, like whether you did the homework or not, because if you didn't do it, well, now you just got a 0 because of him. And if you did do it, I mean, unless it took you a really long time to do, you probably wouldn't want the teacher to grade it anyway. So it's just when the teacher forgets to grade the homework, even if you've done the homework, you're not supposed to remind the teacher, because that's just low. So in that case, Melvin's not a bad guy, because what he did was basically lawful good. He's playing by the rules and order, maintaining order, and so he's not a bad person, but nobody's cheering for him when he does that. Nobody is supporting his decision to remind the teacher to collect the homework, even though it was the right and honorable thing to do. And another example could be, say we have a good guy and a bad guy, but then a worse guy shows up, and then so the good guy and the bad guy have to work together now. That's a pretty common trope. And so the evil guy, he's still bad, but since he's putting his survival as a priority, we want to see him succeed for the time being, because it means everyone else will survive. So if the good guy and the bad guy work together, it doesn't change who they are. It doesn't change their character alignment, but it temporarily changes how the audience is responding to them. And sometimes you just have a bad guy that's so well written and positively received that, or his powers are just so cool, like Thanos. There were a lot, I know a lot of people who were like, man, Thanos is so cool. I love Thanos. Like everyone that I know, they were cheering for him, even though he was the bad guy. He was trying to wipe out half of everything. And Marvel is actually another good example of face versus face, because before that there was Civil War, where Captain America and Iron Man went up against each other, and so there were like 5 and 6 people on each side, and they all fought each other, but they were all good guys, and they were all normally people that you would want to see win, but you couldn't pick a side, and it was just so exciting, and you couldn't look away. So if you were a person that liked both of them, then you were just like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. But I mean, obviously, if you're a little kid or whatever, and you're like, oh, well, Iron Man's my favorite, so I hope, like, if you have a favorite, then yeah, you want to see that one win. But if you like both of them, then it's just, you're kind of looking back and forth, and then there's excitement. So that's why if you're doing face and face, they generally have to be established characters, because otherwise there's not enough oomph behind it for the reader to care. And and then when it comes to tweeners, they can be on either of those sides and then switch over. Or they could also be like a third wild card side, and they just simply say, I'm going to defeat so and so, and if you get in my way, then I'll crush you too. And that can be, so then they're going up against the heel, and you want to see them win because they're facing off against the evil person. But then as soon as the good guy tries to help, well, then they kick the good guy in the face, and like, I told you to stay out of my way. So it's like, okay, you were supporting them at that time, but then as soon as they turn against the person that you like, so then you basically don't support every single thing that the tweener does. And so those are just a few examples of how someone on different sides of the moral alignment scale can be a face or a heel, even though their disposition might set themselves up to be received in a different way. So, let me scroll down here. Alright, so I'm going to wrap this up because we are at 13 minutes now. I don't know how I do that much talking because I hate public speaking. But so I'm going to wrap this up with a few notes about these things, and then hopefully you can take it and apply it to your writing. So now, a face. A face will never cheat unless the heel is already cheated. Then it's payback, not revenge. Revenge is a negative word. When you're writing your good guys, you want to kind of portray it positively. So it's payback. The heel deserved whatever the face did. The faces are going to be brave, and against unfavorable odds, they're going to bury their fears and go forward. They're going to be honest and honorable. They're just going to have traits that people applaud. And underdogs make good faces because they're trying to hulk up and overcome larger opponents. An underdog heel that nobody wants to see win doesn't quite translate as well as it could. And so usually when you have your underdog, you want to see them win. Now, a heel is not going to jump straight into cheating unless he just never intended to fight right at all. Usually, a heel will face off against the good guy, and then once he sees that things are not turning in his favor, then he might cheat. But otherwise, he's not gonna just cheat in the first 2 minutes unless he just had a trap set that he was gonna use all along. But if he actually wanted to fight and go toe to toe, then he's not gonna cheat right away until he realizes that, hey, this isn't working, And they probably won't care how other characters in the story feel about them, and if they existed, they wouldn't care how the reader felt either. And then that's sort of like a cocky, obnoxious, inflated ego attitude that humans don't like. So basically, if you want the readers to boo your character, you're going to give them traits that people don't like, even if they do things that good people do. Because, I mean, maybe they run a charity or whatever, and they do all these good things, but they're just a horrible person otherwise. It's like, oh, well, you do good stuff, but you're just mean. And so they're still a heel, because even though they're on the good guy's side, we, the reader, don't like them. And underdog heels, they can be a little bit weaselly, like when I was talking about how they're not a tweener if they do that, because instead of bravely facing a better opponent, they're going to try and gain an advantage whatever they can, because they don't have those traits. They're not going to be brave, they're going to be a coward, they're going to have traits that we don't like, and so they're not going to, if they're not good enough to do it right, then they're just going to do it wrong. And heels also, I think they would probably be smarter on average, because they have to be manipulative and calculating, and they have to kind of be the criminal mastermind type. Now, a face could be smarter than the heel. It all depends on what you're writing. But heels just, they have that I'm better than you and I know it type of thing going. So they're generally going to be smart, and like they're going to be better, because why else would you be a person that everyone hates unless you can just afford to be that? And then tweeners, a painfully obvious one is a heel. I know I said that before, but it's important. If we, the reader, know that they can't be trusted, then we're just not going to get behind it. So you have to convince your reader that a tweener is at least possibly on the side that they're on for now, and mean it. These are morally gray characters, and they maintain the needle more than they bounce to the left or right. So if they're just bouncing back and forth, that's not going to work. They just kind of have to stay, they have to be who they are, which is in business for themselves. Alright, so hopefully the whole face and heel dynamic gives you something to think about, and something that you can add to your writing, because I know that when you write, you've got your good guys and you've got your bad guys, but if you ever think about how you want the reader to perceive them, and then you organize them that way, you can make some pretty good confrontations, or make sure that the people who are going against each other are the people that readers want to read about going against each other. Alright, so that's Faces and Heels. I hope that that was helpful to you. I enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can hit that like button, and I know what we're going to do. So in the comments, if there is like just what is a character that, I guess, a character that you hate and why, or a character that you just like, your favorite character and why you like them. So not basically because of what they did in their story, but like, why do you like them as a person? Like, what made you want to see them succeed, and or what made you want to see them lose? So leave those in the comments so that way I can look at them later. And I hope that this helped you with your writing, and I hope to see you on the next one. All right.